The silence of space was broken by a weak signal, a cry for help that echoed through the dark. Captain Aaron Drake, once a soldier, now a scavenger, stared at the blinking light on his ship's console. It wasn't just a distress beacon, it was a voice. A child's voice, soft, afraid, fading. Please, somebody help me. Aaron froze. Out here, deep in the outlaw sectors, there were no rescue teams, no law, no mercy. Most signals like this were traps, bait left by pirates to lure fools into ambushes. But this one sounded too real, too desperate. He leaned closer to the speaker. "Kid, where are you?" he said quietly, knowing no one could answer. After a moment, the computer found the source, a slave freighter, drifting and half-destroyed near an asteroid field. The ship's name blinked on the screen, Ketra Dawn. Aaron's jaw tightened. He had seen that name before long ago during the wars. Those ships carried cages instead of passengers. He could turn away. He should turn away. But something in that small voice wouldn't let him. He sighed, tapping the ship's engines. "All right, Ketra Dawn. Let's see what's left of you." The freighter looked like a ghost when he arrived. Hull cracked, lights flickering, and dark smoke spilling into the stars. Aaron suited up, grabbed his old pulse rifle, and drifted across the void on his shuttle. When he entered the ship, the smell of burnt metal and death filled his helmet. He walked slowly through the corridors. Floating bodies, broken cages, and laser burns covered the walls. "Slavers got hit," he muttered, checking one of the dead. The mark on their arm showed the sigil of the Red Serpents, one of the worst slave gangs in the galaxy. Then he heard it, a faint sob, coming from a locked cell at the end of the hall. Aaron raised his weapon, eyes sharp, and used his wrist torch to light the room. Inside, a small figure crouched in the corner, trembling, her skin pale silver that shimmered faintly even in the dark. Her eyes glowed soft blue, wide with fear. A young alien girl, no more than 12, wrapped in torn rags. When he opened the cell, she flinched away, whispering in a strange language. "It's all right," he said, lowering his gun. "I'm not one of them." She stared at him, confused. Aaron reached into his pocket and pulled out a small water pack. He placed it on the floor and stepped back. Slowly, the girl crawled forward and drank. Her hands shook. Her breathing steadied. "What's your name?" Aaron asked gently. She hesitated, then whispered, "Lyra." He nodded. "I'm Aaron. You're safe now." But they weren't. His scanner beeped. Multiple ships incoming. The Red Serpents were coming back. "Damn it," he muttered. "Of course they are." He scooped the girl into his arms and ran toward his shuttle. The lights flickered red as engines roared outside. "Hold on, kid," he said, sprinting through smoke and sparks. They reached his ship, the Sparrow, just as the first shots hit. The hull screamed under laser fire. Aaron dropped her in the passenger seat and slammed into the pilot's chair. "Buckle up." "Oh, right, you don't know what that means," he muttered, pulling her close and strapping the harness over both of them. The Sparrow roared to life, engines spitting fire. He twisted the ship around the wreckage, dodging enemy fire. Eyes focused, heart pounding. 3 pirate ships followed, fast, hungry, and armed to the teeth. Come on," Aaron whispered, punching coordinates. "We're not dying today." The Sparrow dove into the asteroid field, weaving through spinning rocks and shards of ice. The pirates chased, firing wildly. One blast tore through the rear shields. Alarm screamed. Lyra cried out, clutching his jacket. Hey, he said calmly, though his hands shook. "We'll make it. Just don't let go." He twisted the ship through a narrow gap, scraping metal. 2 of the pirate ships crashed into asteroids behind them, bursting into flames. One remained, Aaron smirked. Persistent little bastard. He shut down his lights, letting the Sparrow drift silently behind a massive rock. The pirate ship passed overhead, searching. Aaron waited until it turned its engines toward them, then hit the throttle. The Sparrow shot forward and fired 2 missiles straight into the enemy's belly. A bright explosion filled the dark. Silence followed. Aaron leaned back, breathing hard. Lyra stared at him, eyes wide, glowing softly in the dark cabin. "Are they gone?" she whispered. "Yeah," he said, giving a small smile. "They're gone." For the first time, she smiled too, a small, fragile smile that warmed the cold ship. Later, they sat quietly in the cargo bay. Aaron patched her wounds and wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. She watched him carefully, her expression calm but curious. "Why, you help me?" she asked in broken words. Aaron paused. He didn't know what to say. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was duty. Maybe it was something deeper and something human. He sighed, because no one else would. She looked at him, then nodded slowly. Outside, the stars stretched endless and silent. Inside, a bond was forming, between a broken man and a lost child. Aaron didn't know who she really was. He didn't know her bloodline carried royal power. He only knew she was innocent and that he would protect her. As the sparrow disappeared into the shadows of deep space, a small voice whispered behind him. "Thank you, Aaron." He smiled, eyes tired but peaceful. "You're welcome, kid." He didn't know that this moment, this single act of kindness, would echo across the galaxy for decades. Because one day that frightened girl would return, as a queen. 2 suns rose slowly over the desert world of Varan 9, painting the sand gold and red. Aaron Drake stood outside his small repair hut watching the sky. His ship, the Sparrow, sat hidden under a cover of old junk and sand. He had been hiding here for 3 months. 3 months since the day he saved Lyra, the silver-skinned alien girl who now sat quietly beside a broken engine, studying the way his hands moved. The colony was small. Miners, traders, and drifters who didn't ask questions. That was why Aaron chose it. Here no one cared who you were or what you'd done. Everyone just wanted to survive. Lyra spoke little at first. She didn't understand most human words, but she watched, listened, and learned fast. Her glowing blue eyes followed everything, from the tools he used to the way he cooked food in a rusty old pot. Aaron often caught her humming strange tunes in the night, songs that didn't sound human. They reminded him of wind and rain, even though this planet had neither. One evening he found her sitting outside the hut, staring at the stars. He joined her, handing her a cup of warm synth milk. She took it carefully like it was a treasure. "Those stars," Aaron said, "one of them must be your home." She looked at him, her voice soft. "Home, far away." "Too far," he nodded. "Yeah, I know that feeling." For a moment they sat in silence. Then she asked, "You have home?" Aaron's eyes darkened. "Had one. Lost it in the war." She didn't understand the words completely, but she understood the pain behind them, and for the first time she reached out, her small hand touching his. Days turned into weeks. Lyra learned English quickly. She could say short sentences now, though her accent was strange and musical. She helped him clean tools, fix engines, and trade spare parts for food. The miners started calling her the Quiet Star Girl. Aaron noticed how she smiled more each day. Sometimes she laughed when he made mistakes with her language and he pretended to be angry, which only made her laugh harder. At night, when the twin moons rose, they talked. She told him about her people, the Ailari, a race that valued song, art, and knowledge. She said her mother used to tell her stories of peace, and her father commanded fleets that kept their borders safe. Aaron listened quietly. He didn't tell her that humans once fought the Ailari. He didn't tell her that he had once destroyed one of their ships by accident, killing hundreds. That was a memory that haunted him still. He just smiled and said, "Your parents must be proud of you." Her eyes dimmed. "They've gone." Aaron's chest tightened. "I'm sorry, kid." She shook her head softly. "Not your fault." One night the peace broke. Aaron woke to the sound of engines. Not mining ships, hunters. A red mark appeared on his radar. The red serpents had found them. He rushed to Lyra's room. "We have to go, now." She grabbed her small bag and followed him without question. Outside shadows moved and dark ships landing in the distance. Aaron fired up the Sparrow, its old engine screaming to life. They blasted off just as laser fire tore through the sand below. "Hold tight," Aaron shouted. The desert lit up behind them. 3 small fighter crafts chased them into the sky, firing again and again. Aaron pushed his ship hard, weaving through the canyons, the rocks scraping against the hull. Lyra's face was pale but calm. "You not afraid?" he asked, surprised. She looked at him and said softly, "I trust you." Aaron blinked, then smiled despite the danger. He hit the thrusters and shot the Sparrow straight up through the clouds. A final explosion behind them marked the end of the chase. When they finally landed on the far side of the planet, the engines were smoking, but they were alive. Aaron collapsed against the wall, breathing heavily. Lyra walked over and placed her hand on his shoulder. "You saved me." Again, he chuckled. "Well, you're good at getting into trouble." She tilted her head. "Maybe. You good at saving me," he laughed softly. "Maybe." Then she took something from her pocket and a small silver stone glowing faintly. "My people give this, to remember family," she said. "You take it." Aaron stared at it. "Lyra, that's yours," she shook her head. "You my family now." He didn't know what to say. For a long moment he just looked at her, this strange, brave little girl who had lost everything yet still smiled. He finally took the stone and said, "All right then, but I'll give you something too." He reached into his jacket and pulled out his dog tag, the one he had worn since the war. It was old, scratched, but still carried his name, A. Drake. He placed it around her neck. "If you ever get lost again, remember that name. It'll bring you luck." She touched the metal tag, eyes shining. "I remember." The next morning, Aaron made a decision. He couldn't keep her here anymore. The slavers would come again, and next time they might not miss. He told her about a safe colony far from this system, a place where Ilari refugees sometimes pass through. "I'll get you there," he said. "They'll help you find your people." Lyra didn't speak for a long time. Finally she whispered, "You go with me?" He smiled sadly. "I can't, kid. I've got too many enemies out there. You need a clean start." Tears welled in her glowing eyes. "I not forget you." He placed his hand on her shoulder. "And I won't forget you either." When the Sparrow lifted off for the last time, Aaron stood at the docking ramp, watching her small figure in the crowd below. She turned, waved, and smiled one last time before disappearing into the mist of the colony port. The desert wind howled through the landing bay as Aaron whispered, "Goodbye, kid." He climbed back into his ship, alone once more, but something had changed. For the first time in years, his heart felt alive again. He didn't know it yet, but that little girl would remember his promise. And one day, she would return, not as a lost child, but as a queen. 20 years had passed since Aaron Drake last saw the silver-skinned girl he rescued from the stars. Now he was an old man living among broken ships and forgotten dreams. His home was the junk world of Terrace 4, a planet filled with wrecked machines and rusted metal hills. He ran a small repair shop that no one cared about. Every morning he woke up to the sound of engines dying in the distance. Every night he drank alone, staring at the stars, wondering if the girl he once saved had survived. He never told anyone her name. He never told anyone about the promise he made. To most people, Aaron Drake was just another washed-up scavenger from an old war. But one quiet night, everything changed. A blinding flash lit up the sky, not from the planet's storms, but from something breaking through the atmosphere. Aaron stepped outside, shielding his eyes. A ship, an enormous, majestic, was descending above the wasteland. It was unlike anything he'd seen before. Smooth silver hull, glowing blue engines, and a symbol etched across the side. A circle of light surrounded by wings, the Ilari royal crest. Aaron's heart skipped. He hadn't seen that symbol in 20 years. The ship landed slowly, its engines kicking up dust and wind. Then a voice echoed through the air, not through sound, but through every device on the planet. "This world is under the protection of the Ilari Empire. We come in peace. We seek one human." Captain Aaron Drake. Aaron froze. He hadn't heard that name in decades. The miners and scavengers around him panicked. "Why's the Queen's fleet here?" one shouted. "What do they want with an old mechanic?" Aaron didn't answer. He just stood there, heart pounding, staring at the glowing ship as a landing craft descended toward him. Minutes later, 2 Ilari guards stepped out, tall, armored, with crystal-like armor plates that shimmered under the sun. They approached him with calm grace. "Aaron Drake," one said. "Her Majesty requests your presence aboard the flagship." Aaron blinked. "Her Majesty?" The guard nodded once. "Queen Lyra of the Ilari Empire." For a moment, Aaron thought his heart had stopped. He remembered a small girl hiding behind broken cages. He remembered her laugh, her soft voice, the way she had said, "I not forget you." He swallowed hard. "You're serious?" "Yes," the guard replied. "The Queen has traveled across 5 systems to find you." Aaron looked up at the massive ship hovering above them, shining like a second sun. He chuckled softly. "Well," he muttered, "guess the kid kept her promise." The journey to the flagship was silent. The shuttle rose through the clouds until the entire planet looked like a rusty coin below. When the doors opened, Aaron stepped into a corridor of white light and silver walls. Everywhere he looked, Ilari soldiers bowed as he passed. though he didn't understand why. At the end of the corridor stood two grand doors carved with glowing lines that moved like living fire. They opened without a sound. Inside, the throne room stretched like a cathedral, tall pillars of crystal, floors like mirrors, and banners that shimmered like starlight. And there, standing before the throne, was her Queen Lyra, no longer a frightened child. She stood tall and proud, wearing a flowing silver robe that caught the light of the stars beyond the windows. Her eyes still glowed the same calm blue, but now they carried the weight of entire worlds. A crown of living crystal rested on her head. When she saw him, she smiled, the same small, gentle smile he remembered. Aaron froze in disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me," he said softly. She walked toward him, her voice calm but filled with emotion. "You came," she said. "I didn't have much choice," he replied, trying to hide his awe. "You sent a whole fleet," she laughed quietly. "Yes, I wanted to make sure you didn't run away again." Aaron smiled for the first time in years. "Guess you grew up." Lyra stepped closer. Her eyes softened. "You haven't changed much," she said. "Still hiding from the world." "Yeah," he said quietly. "Old habits." They sat together by a wide viewing window overlooking the stars. For a while they didn't speak. They just watched the galaxies drift by, the same stars they had once looked at together on Varan 9. Finally, Lyra said, "I searched for you for years, Aaron. My people said it was impossible, but I remembered your name, the one on this." She reached into her robe and held up something that shimmered softly, his old dog tag. Aaron's chest tightened. "You still kept it," she nodded, "always. It reminded me of the man who taught me what mercy means." He looked at her confused. "Mercy?" She smiled sadly. "When I became queen, I found the ones who took me, the slavers. My people wanted them all destroyed. But I remembered your words and that mercy isn't weakness. So I spared the innocent and punished only the guilty. That choice made me queen." Aaron didn't know what to say. He felt something he hadn't felt in years. Pride. "You changed the galaxy," he whispered. She looked at him softly. "No, Aaron, you did. I only followed your example." But before he could reply, the doors to the throne room opened again. A human officer stepped in, face pale. "Queen Lyra," he said urgently. "Our sensors detect several human warships approaching. They're demanding we surrender you." Lyra's expression hardened. "So soon?" Aaron frowned. "Surrender? Why?" The officer looked uneasy. "They think you're here to invade. The human government doesn't trust you." Lyra turned toward Aaron. "Then they don't trust you either. They think you're working with me." Aaron laughed bitterly. "Story of my life." She took a deep breath. "Then we will make them see the truth. Together." Aaron looked into her glowing eyes and saw the same courage he once saw in that small, frightened girl so many years ago. He smiled faintly. "All right, Your Majesty," he said. "Let's show them who we really are." As the alarm lights flashed red and the fleet moved into formation, the stars outside burned bright, marking the beginning of something far greater than either of them could imagine. The rescuer and the rescued stood side by side once more. And this time, the galaxy was watching. The sky above Earth's orbit glowed with ships, human and alien fleets facing each other in tense silence. One wrong move could start a war that would burn half the galaxy. Inside the Alari flagship, Queen Lyra stood tall, her silver robe shining under the lights. Beside her, Aaron Drake looked out the window, watching hundreds of human warships aim their cannons at her fleet. "Looks like they're nervous," Aaron said quietly. "They think fear makes them strong," Lyra replied softly. "But fear only blinds," Aaron gave a small smile. "You sound just like a human politician." She turned her head slightly, her eyes glowing blue. "I learned from one," he chuckled. "I was never a politician." "No," she said gently. "You were better." A message flashed on the console, a transmission from the human flagship, the Horizon. Admiral Pierce, a cold, scar-faced man, appeared on the screen. "Queen Lyra of the Alari Empire," he said sternly. "You are trespassing in human space. State your reason before we open fire." Lyra lifted her chin. "I come in peace, Admiral. To speak, not to fight." Pierce's eyes narrowed. "And the man standing beside you?" Aaron stepped forward. "Hello, Admiral. Long time no see." Pierce's expression darkened. Drake, I should have known. You disappear for 20 years and come back with an alien queen. Aaron shrugged. Guess I still know how to make an entrance. The Admiral's voice was sharp. You have no right to speak for Earth. Maybe not, Aaron replied, but I'm the one who stopped her fleet from turning your planet into dust. Pierce's lips tightened. We'll see about that. The screen went dark. Lyra turned toward Aaron. He doesn't trust you. Aaron sighed. He never did. Back during the war, I went against his orders to save civilians. He called me a traitor. Then why risk your life to stand beside me? She asked softly. He looked at her for a long time. Because I promised you once I'd protect you. And because you're trying to do what no one else ever dared to do. Bring peace. Lyra smiled faintly. Then we stand together. Aaron nodded. Always. The next day, a secret meeting took place aboard the Horizon. Only a few leaders were allowed inside, humans and Alari alike. The air was heavy with mistrust. Admiral Pierce sat across from Queen Lyra. You say you want peace, he said coldly. But your ships sit above our worlds armed and ready. Lyra's calm never broke. They are here to protect me. I know you have enemies who would rather see me dead. Pierce leaned forward. And what about him? He pointed at Aaron. Why bring a washed-up soldier to a table of kings? Lyra's voice turned firm. Because he understands both our hearts. He saw the cruelty of war. He saved me when your people turned away. Pierce's eyes flickered. A story fit for a drama, not a treaty. Aaron's jaw clenched, but Lyra placed a gentle hand on his arm. He may not be noble by birth, she said, but he is noble in spirit. I owe him everything. For a moment, even the Admiral was silent. Then he said quietly, Very well. We will hear your proposal. Lyra spoke with grace. Her words were simple but powerful. No more slaves. No more hidden wars. The Alari Empire will open trade and peace routes with the Terran Alliance. Together we can rebuild what we destroyed. Aaron watched her as she spoke. Every movement, every word carried purpose. This was not the scared girl he had rescued. This was a queen who could change history. When she finished, the room fell silent. Then Admiral Pierce slowly nodded. Your words are beautiful, Your Majesty, he said. But peace requires trust. And trust requires proof. He stood, his eyes turning to Aaron. And I don't trust him. Lyra's eyes narrowed. Why? Pierce smiled faintly. Because I received this. He slid a data chip across the table. A message from your own empire. Someone in your court wants Drake dead. They claim he's a human spy manipulating you. Aaron froze. What? Lyra's hands tightened. That's a lie, Pierce shrugged. Maybe, maybe not. But someone out there doesn't want this peace to happen. The words hung heavy in the air. Lyra looked at Aaron, his face calm but his eyes clouded with old pain. I've survived worse, he said quietly. But if someone's after me, it means they're after you too. That night, Lyra stood alone in her chambers, staring out at the stars. Aaron entered quietly. You're still awake? I can't sleep, she whispered. The council, the humans, they all look at me and see a danger, not hope. He stepped closer. They'll learn. Change takes time. She turned to him, her expression soft but full of doubt. What if I fail? What if I bring only war? Aaron smiled faintly. Then I'll still be here. Because I believe in you, her voice trembled. Why? He met her eyes. Because I see the same courage in you that I saw 20 years ago. The same light that saved me when I was lost, her breath caught. Aaron. He looked away. You're a queen now, Lyra, you don't need me. I do, she whispered. Not as a queen, as Lyra. For a heartbeat, the air between them was warm and silent. But before either could speak again, an explosion rocked the ship. The lights went out. Alarm screamed. Lyra turned to him in shock. What's happening? Aaron grabbed his weapon. Trouble. The door burst open. 2 guards rushed in, shouting. Assassins! They've breached the throne level. Aaron looked at Lyra. They're not after your crown. They're after both of us. She took a deep breath, her blue eyes blazing with light. Then let's keep our promise, she said. Aaron smiled grimly. Together? Together. As the ship trembled and shadows filled the halls, the human who once saved a frightened alien girl now stood beside a queen, ready to fight the darkness that threatened to destroy everything they had built. And somewhere in the shadows, a hidden voice whispered through the comms, the queen and the human must die before dawn. The air inside the Ilari flagship was filled with smoke and chaos. Sirens screamed through the corridors, and the glow of red lights painted the walls like fire. Queen Lyra and Aaron Drake ran through the trembling halls as explosions thundered below them. "Assassins are inside the ship," shouted one of the guards. Aaron pulled Lyra into cover behind a bulkhead. "They're not here to scare you," he said, his voice steady. "They're here to end this peace." Lyra's eyes glowed with anger. "Then they will fail." A group of dark-armored figures stormed through the hallway. Their movements were too sharp, too organized, not simple mercenaries. Aaron recognized the pattern. "These aren't pirates," he muttered. "These are soldiers." Lyra looked at him. "Whose?" He didn't answer. He already feared the truth. The first wave hit hard. Aaron fired quick, precise shots, taking down 2 attackers. The rest scattered, returning fire with plasma rifles. Lyra raised her hands, energy rippling through her palms. A wave of blue light burst forward, throwing the enemies back like dolls. Aaron stared for a moment. "You didn't tell me you could do that." Lyra smirked faintly. "I've learned a few things since you last saved me." He laughed under his breath. "Guess I'm not the hero anymore." "Not true," she said. "You're still the one I trust." They moved together, 2 figures against the storm, making their way toward the command center. When they reached it, the ship's commander, Voran, stood waiting. His uniform was torn and his face was pale. "Your Majesty," Voran said quickly, "we've sealed most sections, but someone disabled our defense grid. We're vulnerable." "Who?" Lyra demanded. "Find them." Voran hesitated. "It came from..." "Inside your council's channel." Lyra froze. "My own council?" Aaron clenched his fists. "Someone on your side set this up." She turned toward him, her expression a mix of fury and disbelief. "Why would they..." Before she could finish, a sharp beep echoed from the console. Aaron glanced at it. "Incoming transmission." He pressed the button. The screen flickered, revealing a familiar face. "Admiral Pierce, Queen Lyra," the human admiral said with a calm, cold smile. "I warned you not to trust everyone around you." Lyra's voice was sharp. "Your ships attacked us?" Pierce shook his head. "No, not mine. But someone had to make sure the galaxy saw what happens when humans and aliens try to play friends." Aaron stepped forward. "You staged this?" Pierce's eyes narrowed. "Don't act surprised, Drake. You know how this works. War makes profit. Peace kills it." Aaron's voice was low. "You're still the same coward from the war." Pierce ignored him. "The Terran Council will think you tried to kill her. The Ilari will think humans betrayed them. And when they go to war, everyone wins. Everyone except you." The transmission cut off. Lyra's fist trembled with anger. "He means to destroy everything we built." Aaron nodded grimly. "Then we stop him before he lights the match." But it was already too late. The Horizon, the human flagship, fired without warning. A beam of white light struck one of Lyra's escort ships, tearing it apart. Ilari warships turned in defense, engines roaring. Within moments, the silence of peace shattered into chaos. The 2 fleets opened fire. The war had begun again. Inside the flagship, Lyra stood frozen for a heartbeat. Then she shouted, "Cease fire." "This is a false order." But no one could hear her over the roar of battle. Aaron grabbed her arm. "We have to leave." She shook her head. "I can't abandon them." He looked straight into her eyes. "You can't lead them if you're dead." She hesitated, then nodded once. "Then we find the truth, and we show it to the galaxy." They ran to the hangar, slipping through collapsing halls and burning debris. Aaron hacked into a sealed door, smoke filling the air. Behind them, Voran's voice echoed over the comms. "Your Majesty, the traitors are in control of engineering. They're overloading the core." Lyra's eyes widened. "If they do that, the ship goes up," Aaron finished. "We have 5 minutes." They sprinted toward the escape bay. 2 assassins appeared at the corridor's end, weapons raised. Aaron fired first, one fell. The other charged, swinging a blade of plasma. Lyra met him head-on, her energy flaring bright. The air shook with power. When it ended, the assassin lay still, and Lyra's hands trembled, glowing with fading light. Aaron caught her before she fell. "Easy," she breathed hard. "You always..." "Save me," he smiled faintly. "And you always make it worth it." They reached a small transport ship just as the main reactor alarms began to scream. Aaron pushed the throttle as the flagship behind them began to split apart, flames bursting from its sides. The explosion lit the void like a second sun. Lyra stared at it through the window, silent tears in her eyes. Thousands of her soldiers gone, her people betrayed from within. Aaron placed a hand on her shoulder. We'll find who did this. We'll end it, she looked at him, eyes burning with resolve. No, Aaron, we didn't fail, they did. And they'll pay. Hours later, they landed on an abandoned moon, the same place Aaron once hid his ship years ago. There, surrounded by silence and dust, Lyra activated a small projection. Images flickered, coded transmissions, secret orders, and payment logs. The proof of betrayal. Aaron leaned closer. These aren't just military files, he said. These came from corporations, human and Alari, the same ones who ran the old slave routes. Lyra's face turned pale. The slavers? He nodded grimly. They never died, Lyra. They just changed their flags. The words echoed through the cold night air. Lyra looked at the stars, her eyes glowing softly. Then we hunt them. We end their war. Aaron gave a small smile. Now that sounds like a plan. Far away in the darkness between stars, Admiral Pierce watched the same explosion from his command deck. Behind him, a shadowy figure spoke from the screen. Is it done? Pierce nodded. Yes, the Queen lives, but not for long. The hunt has begun. The shadow smiled faintly. Good. Let the galaxy burn. The war began with lies. Across the stars, human fleets clashed with Alari armadas. Each side believed the other had fired first. News channels shouted words like revenge, betrayal, and justice. But neither side knew the truth, that both were being controlled by something far darker. In the middle of it all, two fugitives hid among the shadows, Queen Lyra and Captain Aaron Drake. Their small transport ship drifted near the edge of a dying sun, its systems half dead and hull-scarred from battle. Aaron sat in the cockpit staring at the glowing map of the galaxy. Every red mark meant a battle. Every red mark meant lives lost. Lyra stood behind him, her arms folded, her royal robes replaced with a worn pilot suit. They're tearing each other apart, she whispered. Aaron nodded slowly. That's what the slavers want. For weeks they had been running, from both humans and Alari. Each government had called them traitors. Each had placed a bounty on their heads. But they didn't care about the price. They cared about the truth. They had traced the source of the conspiracy to a system called Karnus Reach, a region filled with old mining stations and abandoned colonies. According to stolen files, the slavers had built something there, a fortress where they stored their weapons, data, and prisoners. Aaron zoomed in on the map. That's it, he said. The core station. Lyra leaned forward. If we get proof of who runs it, we can end this war. Aaron gave a half smile. Guess we're going back to being heroes again. She looked at him. We were never heroes, Aaron, just people who refused to give up. He nodded. Fair enough. They approached Karnus Reach under the cover of drifting debris. The old mining station appeared in the dark, massive, ring-shaped, surrounded by patrol drones. Its lights glowed red like the eyes of a beast waiting to strike, Aaron whispered. Looks abandoned enough. Lyra shook her head. No. Look closer. Through the viewport, hundreds of slave cages floated near the lower docks, full of both humans and Alari. Men, women, children, chained, beaten, and forgotten. Aaron's fists tightened. So it's true. The war was just a distraction. Lyra's voice turned cold. They use war to hide slavery. They profit from pain. Aaron took a breath. Then we end it tonight. They landed their small ship inside a dark cargo bay. No alarms, no guards. Too quiet. Aaron loaded his pulse rifle, scanning the room. I don't like this. Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder. I do, she said softly. It means they don't know we're here yet. They moved through the corridors, rusted metal walls, flickering lights, and the faint hum of machines. They found control panels filled with transaction logs, proof of the deals made between human corporations and Alari nobles. Every name, every shipment, every lie. Lyra's voice trembled with fury. My own council is part of this, Aaron looked at her. And so is Pierce's command chain. Both sides are dirty. Suddenly, a noise echoed behind them. Footsteps. Aaron turned fast, gun raised. Out of the shadows stepped Voran, her former commander. Your Majesty, he said with a bitter smile. I told you not to trust him. Lyra froze. You, he nodded. You wanted peace. But peace is weakness. The Alari Empire survives through power. The slavers understood that. Aaron's eyes narrowed. So you sold her out? Vorin smirked. I gave her a lesson. Compassion kills. You should have let her die 20 years ago. Aaron fired before he finished the sentence. The blast hit Vorin's shoulder, sending him to the floor. But he laughed in a cruel, broken sound. You can't stop it. The war is already won. The leaders, the weapons, they all belong to us now. Lyra's voice was calm, but her eyes glowed with fury. Not for long. She stepped forward and blue energy surged from her hands. Vorin's laughter faded into a scream, then silence. Aaron stood quietly for a moment. You didn't have to— Yes, I did, she said coldly. He would have killed thousands more. Aaron looked at her, not with fear but sadness. You're changing, Lyra's voice softened. So are you. They reached the main control room. Inside, a massive holographic table projected the faces of men and women from both races. Generals, admirals, merchants, politicians. At the center of them all was Admiral Pierce. His voice echoed through the room. Status report, Vorin. Aaron grinned. Wrong person, Admiral. Pierce froze. Drake? Aaron stepped into the light. Yeah, surprised to see me? Pierce's cold smile returned. Not really. You never knew when to die. Lyra moved beside Aaron. It's over, Pierce. We have everything. Your orders, your partners, your files. Pierce laughed. You think that matters? The galaxy wants war. They need it. You can't stop what's already begun. Aaron raised his gun. Maybe not. But we can stop you. He fired at the console and sparks exploded across the hologram. Pierce's face vanished. The alarms went off. Drones began to pour into the corridor. Time to go, Aaron shouted. They ran through the chaos, fighting off waves of drones. Lyra used her energy to block fire, while Aaron covered her back with precise shots. Explosions shook the hallways as they reached their ship. They launched just as the station behind them began to burn. From orbit, they watched the flames consume the fortress. Lyra's face glowed in the reflection of the fire. It's done, Aaron said quietly. No, she replied. It's just begun. She turned to him. We'll broadcast the truth. The slavers, the lies, the proof. When the people see it, the war will stop. Aaron smiled tiredly. You still believe people will listen? She looked at him. If one man could believe in a frightened girl, maybe a galaxy can believe in the truth. He stared at her for a moment, then nodded. Then let's give them something to believe in. As their ship disappeared into hyperspace, the burning station faded behind them. But in its ashes, a new light was born. For the first time in decades, hope returned to the stars. But far away, Admiral Pierce stood before a council of shadows. His eyes cold. They've exposed our fortress, one voice said. Pierce smiled faintly. Then we moved to phase 2. And the Queen? Another asked. He turned toward the hologram of her face flickering in the dark. She'll wish I'd killed her 20 years ago. The galaxy was burning. Human and Alari fleets fought across dozens of worlds. Cities fell, colonies vanished, and every star seemed to shine with fire. But deep in the chaos, two people carried the truth, Queen Lyra and Captain Aaron Drake. Their small ship, the Sparrow II, drifted through the dark, running on half power. Inside, Aaron coughed weakly, one hand pressed against his bandaged side. He'd been hurt during their escape from Karnas Reach. Lyra sat beside him, her eyes dim with worry. You need rest, she whispered. He smirked. We both know I'm not good at that. She looked down at the glowing console. The message is ready, she said softly. But once we send it, everyone will come for us, slavers, admirals, even my own council. Aaron gave a tired laugh. Wouldn't be the first time the galaxy tried to kill me. Lyra smiled sadly. No, but it might be the last. She stared at the message, a transmission containing every secret they had stolen. Proof that the war was planned. Records of both human and Alari leaders selling their people for profit. Evidence that the slave network had controlled governments for decades. Aaron leaned forward, adjusting a switch. Once we send this, it'll hit every major broadcast channel. No one can bury it, Lyra hesitated. It will destroy everything I built. He looked at her gently. Sometimes you have to burn the lies to find the truth. She nodded slowly. Then let's burn them all. The signal burst across the stars, a wave of light and sound that crossed every system, every ship, every home. Millions of people watched in silence as the truth was revealed. Images of suffering, corruption, and betrayal filled the screens. And in the middle of it all, Queen Lyra stood before the galaxy, This war was born from greed, her voice echoed through every world. We have been fooled. But today I will not let us live in lies anymore. We are not enemies. We are survivors. We are family. Across planets and stations, people listened. Human miners, alien children, soldiers on both sides. Some cried. Some shouted. And some began lowering their weapons. But the enemies of peace were not silent. On the human flagship horizon, Admiral Pierce slammed his fist against the console. "Cut that transmission." His officers looked terrified. "We can't, sir. It's everywhere." Pierce's voice turned cold. "Then we destroy the source. Find her. Now." Moments later, a swarm of warships changed course, heading straight toward the small signal coming from the dark edge of space. The Queen's ship. The Sparrow 2 inside alarm screamed. Lyra looked out the viewport. "They found us." Aaron smiled faintly. "Guess we made them angry." She turned to him. "We can't outrun them." "Didn't plan to," he said. "We'll hold them long enough for the truth to finish spreading." Lyra's voice trembled. "You'll die." He gave her a gentle look. "Then I'll die doing something that matters." Her throat tightened. "You've done enough, Aaron. You saved me." "You gave me hope." He shook his head. "You gave me something better. A reason to live again." For a moment, neither spoke. Outside, the enemy fleet grew larger, brighter, closer. Lyra moved to the ship's core and began charging its defense grid. "We can overload the reactor," she said quietly. "If we time it right, the explosion will blind their sensors and send the message to every corner of the galaxy." Aaron smiled faintly. "A fireworks show for the ages." She looked at him, tears glowing in her blue eyes. "You should be the one to escape." He shook his head. "You still don't get it, do you? You're the Queen. You have to live. The galaxy needs you." She took his hand. "And I need you." Aaron smiled sadly. "Then remember me." Minutes later, the enemy ships surrounded them. Dozens of laser beams pierced the dark. Fire lit up the void. The Sparrow shuddered, engine screaming, hull tearing apart. Aaron struggled to his feet, limping toward the reactor chamber. "Keep the signal alive," he shouted. Lyra reached out. "Aaron, wait." He turned, giving her one last smile. "You once told me mercy isn't weakness. Remember that when you rebuild." Before she could stop him, he slammed his hand on the reactor control. Light filled the ship. Bright, endless, beautiful. Lyra's voice broke. "Aaron!" The Sparrow exploded, a burst of blue and white energy that cut through space like a second sun. Every enemy ship was blinded, every transmission amplified, carrying the truth even farther. The blast echoed through the stars for minutes before silence returned. Days later, across the galaxy, the war stopped. The truth could no longer be hidden. Both human and Alari leaders were arrested. The slave trade collapsed overnight, and the people, once divided by fear, began rebuilding together. Queen Lyra stood before the first joint council of the new alliance of worlds. Her voice was calm, but her eyes carried sorrow. "Peace is not built by weapons," she said. "It is built by hearts willing to forgive." Then she placed something small on the table, a metal dog tag, old and scratched, engraved with 2 words, Aaron Drake. Years passed. On a quiet hill overlooking Earth's dawn, a memorial stood, half stone, half crystal, human and Alari names carved side by side. At the very top, under the light of 2 suns, were the words, "He saved one life." She saved them all. Lyra stood before it wearing simple clothes instead of royal armor. Her crown rested in her hands. She whispered, "You once said no one else would help me. But you did. And now the whole galaxy knows your name." She placed his dog tag at the base of the monument. The wind caught her silver hair, and for a moment she smiled. The same small smile she once gave a soldier 20 years ago. As she walked away, a small child tugged her sleeve. A human boy holding a model of a spaceship. "Queen Lyra," he said softly. "Was Captain Drake real?" She knelt, smiling warmly. "Yes, very real. What happened to him?" She looked up at the sunrise.
"He became a star." The boy smiled, running off to play. Lyra watched him, her voice barely a whisper.
"And stars never die." In the distance, the dawn light touched the horizon, bright, warm, and full of life. And for the first time in 1,000 years, both humans and Alari looked to the same sky and felt the same hope. The man who once saved a child had saved an entire galaxy, And his name, Aaron Drake, became a legend whispered by every world. The end.